This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Happy Wrap. You ever wanted to design your very own gift wrapping paper? Now is your chance to do so. Whether it's for the holiday season, weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, no matter what the occasion calls for, you can use Happy Wrap to wrap your gifts. As a matter of fact, you can even design notebooks, greeting cards, gift tags, and so much more. You can sign up today at happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use the promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. By Simpler Hair Color. Hey guys, are you tired of using that drugstore hair dye brand that isn't getting the job done? If you want to use a great product to cover those grays, have no fear, Simpler Hair Color is here. No mixing, no dripping, no mess. It's super easy to use, whether you're a beginner or a pro. Go to simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use my promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. And by WWE Shop with Fanatics. Get your favorite WWE Superstars merchandise and wear them proud with superstars like the OTC Roman Reigns, Rhea Ripley, the Second City Saint CM Punk, John Cena, Main Event Jey Uso, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, and so many more. Oh, by the way, they got some really cool championship belts in there as well. So go to wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com. Again, that's wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com so you can go to WWE Shop with Fanatics. This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew Podcast, brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I hope this week is treating you all absolutely wonderful because I am in a very, very good mood. This past Thursday, I had just put on my social media, and it was announced that I have now surpassed 1,000 pure subscribers on my YouTube channel. So first and foremost, let me just say thank you. Thank you to every single one of you, all of my subscribers who have joined on to the D-Lew podcast train, to everyone that shared, everyone that was sharing all of my posts, trying to get the number 1,000. And we're not done yet. The next goal is 2,000, then 3, then 4, then 5. The list goes on and on. So this is just a huge milestone, and I am truly, truly grateful for this opportunity. Oh, speaking of opportunity, yours truly has been selected by All Elite Wrestling to be a part of media covering this weekend's AEW Dynasty pay-per-view in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So the D-Lew Podcast is now All Elite, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So again, a lot to be thankful for. I am blessed and truly, truly humble for this wonderful opportunity. But this week, I had the opportunity of doing an exclusive interview with the Monster Factory champion, the Heatseeker, Chris Desmond. Now, Chris and I go back, to around 2019, I believe, when he joined the Monster Factory, just getting ready to start training. And I just saw him elevate the entire time. And we talk about, the early days of him growing up in South Jersey, how he got into wrestling, what made him and what made him decide to become a wrestler, and his grind and his journey in becoming the Monster Factory champion. In addition to, at the end of the episode, after the interview, I'm going to give my picks for this weekend's AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. And let's not wait any longer. My exclusive interview with Chris Desmond in the AEW preview show starts right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a guy that I've known a little over 5 years, at the world-famous Monster Factory, pro wrestling. And this guy I've seen literally start training and go all the way to the top, with a lot of in between. But he is the reigning, defending, undisputed Monster Factory heavyweight champion, the Heatseeker, Chris Desmond. Chris, thank you for joining me. How are you, man?
I'm doing really good. Quite the intro. I wasn't expecting that one.
Hey man, it's all
Nah,
good.
man, really good. It's really good to be here. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why, but I am. But I think it's just gonna be. I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fine.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, we've known each other a little over 5 years, and I was only there maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. By the time you got there, so I always say, guys like yourself, Goldie, Bobby, Brett Waters, the list goes on and on of people that I've kind of grown with in wrestling,
Mhm.
and the fact that I got to see you literally, and we're gonna get onto it, later on in the show, talk about your rise
Mhm.
to the greatest heights. It's incredible. It was really, really cool to see. But every story has its beginning, and yours is not different. So, talk about life growing up in Somerdale, New Jersey, family life, the whole nine yards.
Okay, so I actually recently moved to Summerdale a couple years ago, just to be closer to the Monster Factory. I actually grew up in a town called Hamilton, New Jersey.
Mm,
Kind of a small town. There's a lot of people there. Growing up, I've always been a wrestling fan. Watching Monday Night Raw every chance that I could. Staying up late. My mom always got mad at me staying up till like 11 p.m.
right.
Till Raw finished. Um, but yeah, I came from that, and weirdly enough, yeah, I think it was about 4 years ago. I kind of moved to Summerdale, just to be closer to Monster Factory because I wanted to be more involved with it. Um, so yeah, uh,
That's cool. That's
yeah,
really cool. You said Hamilton, New Jersey. I actually, which is crazy, I'm aging myself now. When I was involved in the drum and bugle corps activity, I believe Hamilton High School had just opened. This
okay,
particular, yeah, it was brand new. I think in maybe the winter of '03. My drum corps
okay,
actually rehearsed there because the one of the guys that was teaching the marching band at the time, God rest his soul, Brian Law,
mm,
he got us in there. So I mean, they had this immaculate music. I mean, the music room was just incredible. I couldn't
mm.
believe. But I just when you said Hamilton, I said, wait a minute, I've actually been there a couple times.
Yeah, weirdly enough, the one thing that it's known for is it's the blueberry capital of the world. Every year they host its red, white, and blueberry festival there in the summertime, which
Wow,
is weirdly a fun fact everyone decides to tell me when they hear about Hamilton. Not to be confused with Hamilton, which I when I first started wrestling, I originally tried to come out hailing from Hamilton, but everyone would pronounce it wrong. So I just switched it to Summerdale.
gotcha. Not totally understand that. So you have a little bit of a martial arts background. So talk about that a little bit, and like in when your growing years as a child, and learning, the martial arts.
So when I first moved out to Hamilton, I wasn't super involved in anything, sports or clubs or anything. My dad had a friend of his ran a karate school in the middle of town,
Okay.
um, at this local gym, and he brought me. I think I was maybe 12 years old at this time. He
Hmm.
brought me in
Okay.
and introduced me. I was nervous. I was such a shy kid. Like being social wasn't my thing. I mean, it kind of really isn't now, but being younger and just I like the physicality of it all. Um, so I just signed up and like 3, 4 days a week, I was going to this class at night, and I was doing it for about 10 plus years.
Hmm.
Um, I guess it was really my first sport that I really took seriously.
Hmm.
And because I did basketball one year, it wasn't good. The only stat I had was a foul. Uh,
Hey, that's right.
but my
That's
team
right. Give him
did
a foul.
my team did win the season. It's like intramural basketball or something.
Okay. Okay.
But I did used to train with the track team. I would never compete because it wasn't something I was like that dedicated to. But being in martial arts was something that really gave me a sense of like pride, especially competing in tournaments and just being like I guess a healthier me,
For sure.
being it everything being so physical and whatnot.
Hmm. Well, that's awesome, man. And having that wherewithal and understanding, me being active and all that
Hmm.
stuff, that's really, really important. So I know you said when you were younger, and that was going to lead to my next question of being a fan of professional wrestling really young. So obviously, you're a lot younger than me, and WWE by the time you were coming was watching, it was mainly the only game in town.
Hmm.
Obviously there was, the WCW thing, but that went away, was it 2001?
Uh,
And obviously TNA was around too, but WWE was just the way to go. You mentioned Monday Night Raw. So
yeah.
who were some of those wrestlers that you gravitated towards, as a child, saying, "Hey, that's my guy," or "That's my girl," whichever. Who were some of those wrestlers that you really enjoyed watching back then?
So the first time I saw wrestling was by accident. I was just flipping through channels and it was like probably 99
Okay.
where I found an episode of SmackDown,
Mm.
and it was back when SmackDown was on UPN, I think, just
UPN
before
not, yeah.
um and I remember Jeff Hardy being on the screen, and I'm a big Hardy's guy. Uh the Hardy Boys, and then how could you not mention The Rock? You know, what I mean,
Oh, for sure.
being captivated by The Rock.
Absolutely.
Those three were probably the ones that really drew me in the most. Um, and then for a while I kind of fell off, just because I was a kid. I didn't really know how TV schedules worked.
For
And
sure.
then I remember later on accidentally finding TNA Impact. Um, it was probably like '04, '05, like the height of its X division as well. Seeing guys like AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, um, Amazing Red, those watching guys like that, I was like smaller guys, but they're still larger than life. Really drew me into that. So I got to see a little bit of everything when I was younger, and then when I finally got to see Raw on a regular schedule, it was like guys like Triple H, Randy Orton, uh, Goldust was a. I was such a big Goldust fan back in like 2002. I didn't even
Oh,
know.
he was.
I didn't know anything about Goldust before that, but Goldust in like early 2000s was my guy. And Kane, loved Kane. So yeah, man, there's a lot of those Attitude Era guys and a lot of X Division guys that really just drew me into wrestling. I was like, oh man, this is good stuff. This is good television.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned TNA, early TNA, that's the TNA that I love. Now,
Hmm.
in the beginning, TNA, you had to order on pay-per-view every week. It was
Hmm.
9.99 per week
Yeah.
that you would get a new episode of Impact because
Uh-huh.
that was the only distribution model that they had before getting an actual TV deal. They didn't get, I think at one point, maybe '04, they were on Fox Sports Net. And then in '05, when WWE left Spike TV to go
Yeah.
back to USA, they needed that spot filled, and TNA ended up getting on a different day, obviously,
Yeah.
but they got that professional wrestling back on their channel, and that was really when it became, I guess, up to a much broader audience, especially
Yeah.
when you had the UFC on Spike and all that stuff.
I
So
definitely remember the Spike TV. I think that's how I was able to find it at first. Yeah, that's just I remember that.
good times. So after you graduated high school, what was the initial plan? Because obviously, we're in high school and we have all of these things that we want to do. And when you're 18, what your mindset is at 18 might differ at 23.
Hmm.
What your mindset at 23 might differ at 30.
Hmm.
So at the time, was professional wrestling on the trajectory for Chris Desmond at that time?
Not necessarily, no. I didn't really have a plan after high school.
Okay.
I was kind of just floating in the ether. I just really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I've always had wrestling. To me, wrestling always seemed like a far-fetched dream.
Mhm.
Um, Not something that seemed realistic at the time.
Right.
So I just after high school, and also I wasn't much of a school guy. I have my own opinions on the education system. I don't really want to get into,
I
but
feel you.
uh, but yeah, I just worked a bunch of different jobs, and for a while I just felt lost, and I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I was just like, man, I wish I could be doing what I really love to do. But to me, I just didn't know how that was possible. Um, so a lot of years went by where I feel like I wasted, uh, not knowing what I wanted to do after high school. Um, and then I think, and stop me from jumping the gun here, but
No,
I think
no,
it was
no.
about WrestleMania 35 was the first Mania I ever attended.
2019, yeah.
And it was that WrestleMania. There was a moment where the show was over, people are leaving. Becky Lynch had just won both women's titles, and the front, like the ramp area, was getting cleared out. But I walked up to there, and Becky was still making her way up the ramp, and we like made eye contact just for a split second,
Hmm.
and I just like felt my in my soul, I was just like, man, I should be up there. Like I feel like I don't want to waste any more time. So just a few months later, I looked into the Monster Factory and, made plans to go check it out.
Wow, man. So that, I mean, and literally that was going to be my next question, and you answered it for me, and I appreciate it. So you go to WrestleMania 35 at
Mm,
MetLife Stadium. By the way, I heard about the stories of how it was a nightmare getting out of there. You figured that pay-per-view didn't end until probably like maybe 12:30 in the morning.
yeah.
And you lock eyes with the man, Becky Lynch, who just became the undisputed Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion, beating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. You walk up to the ramp, you make eye contact with her, and all of a sudden it hits you. Boom! I want to get into the pro wrestling industry, and then you find the Monster Factory. So, on that note, what was the process for you getting in contact with the factory as far as getting information and things of that nature? How did you go about doing that?
So Google's a great thing, right?
Hmm.
I just looked up wrestling schools in the area of where I was at, and two popped up. One was the Monster Factory, and one was CZW's old school that used to be in Blackwood, New Jersey.
Yes. Hmm.
But that had closed down. I think they run out of I'll be honest, I don't know where they run out of, but I know they have another location for their school now. But the
Hmm.
one by in Blackwood had closed down, so I just checked out the Monster Factory. I just looked on their website, and at the time they had a roster page of the guys that were there, and I was just like, yeah, man, these are some cool looking guys. Uh, and it was in New Jersey, South Jersey, where I'm born and raised. It's like probably 35 minutes away from me. So I sent an email to the Monster Factory or I might have sent a text. I'm not sure. All I know is the only response I got was like, yeah, come in. And that was it. It's just like, I was just like, what time, what day? And they're just like, this day, 7 o'clock, back when training was at like 8 p.m. at the time.
Right.
And then when I got to the building, I didn't even know where the entrance was. I was just like circling the building until, he popped his head out and he was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for the Monster Factory." I was like, "Oh yeah, come in." I was like, "Okay." So that was day one. And then
Wow. Mm-mm-mm.
he gave me the tour of the place. So when they had everyone was training with the two rings
Right.
and you know, Dan in typical fashion, he's just like, "So when you joining?" And I was just like, at first I didn't know what to say because I was just like, "Oh man, I'm such a nervous wreck. I don't even know what to say right now." And but he was like, and I was just like, as soon as possible. And we made it happen, and I joined September 2019.
Wow, man. And the he that he's referring to is Danny Cage, who is the
Uh-huh.
owner, head coach, and operator of the world famous Monster Factory out in Paulsboro, New Jersey. And I laughed at what he said because that is the response from Danny Cage when you hit him up about wanting to join. Yeah, show up. Like that's
Hmm.
his thing. Just come in. Not a pitch, not
Hmm.
a hey brother, you can I'll make you a star, bro. Like none of that. It's just come in, take a tour of the place. It'll be a night where they're training, and
Hmm.
then you can make a decision on where you want to hone your craft and to become a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And the entrance thing popped me too because I'm just like when the day I showed up, I'm just like, where the hell is the door at? And it's just the first day jitters, when you're showing up at the factory and just trying to just make your way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about the early days of training when you did when you did indeed join. Like, what was that like as far as saying, yo, this is real now, and you're doing Hindu squats and you're doing all these things. You're running and you're running the ropes and you're taking bumps, all this stuff. What was that like for you, in the early stages of your wrestling career?
So, first and foremost, I was terrified. One of the things that I'm really nervous about is meeting new people for the first, like, I just like, sometimes I just don't know how to, you know, interact with people
Right.
for the first time. I'm just
I
like,
totally get it.
hello, are you cool? Am I bothering you? All right, never mind. I'll go over here. Sorry.
Right, right, right.
But I definitely it definitely humbled me a little bit because I was like, I thought I was in shape, and then they did the warm up, and I'm like, you know what? I take that back. There were some aspects of training where my martial arts training had prepared me for, like
Right.
rolls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the warm up was a different animal. And, you know, to this day, it's almost the same warm up because it's supposed to humble you coming in. Like the warm up,
Right.
it's 45 minutes long,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people it's a lot of people quit right after that. It's just like, oh, this is a bit much, right? Um, but as far as like first couple months, I just, ears and eyes everywhere to figure out, all right, what's everyone else doing? How does everyone interact? What can I take from today's lesson?
Right.
Uh, because I feel like if I didn't learn something that day, either I wasn't paying enough attention or, um, you know, uh, whatever. Um, I always want to leave feeling like I learned something that day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally get
there was
that.
a lot of hands-on stuff that day, and a lot of yelling back then. Uh, and training from the time you start it was I think 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing something, and you were gonna earn your time there. And, for a bit, in the back of my mind, was like, man, am I cut out for this? Um, but, getting to talk to a few people there, the first person I can think of is Oliver,
Mm-hmm.
also from the Monster Factory,
Mm-hmm.
co-promoter for We Are One. He was one of the first people to just come up to me and just talk to me like a regular person. So I'll always thank Oliver for that one. But he even just came up to me and be like, "Hey man, I know it's difficult now, but honestly, this is the easy stuff. Don't worry. It'll get a little tougher later on, but just hang in there." And yeah, man, the first couple months was tough. It was really tough. Really doubted myself a lot, and but sticking it through has really got me to where I am today.
That's awesome. And when you take that experience and like anything else, whether it's any athletics, whether it's
Mhm,
basketball, baseball, football, soccer, what MMA, whatever it might be, or if you're an actor, if you're a recording artist, all the work you put in, the results are going to come, but you
mhm,
have to put the work in, and it's going to be hard
mhm,
because when I first started acting, bro, I'll never forget. My best friend because it was really tough in the beginning because he was a
mhm.
musician. He was with his rock band, and he had to tell me. He said, "Bro," he said, "if it was easy, everybody would be doing it."
Yeah.
So it takes that special individual to really go through the grind of, especially in this genre of sports entertainment, where it is taxing on your body. It is physical. It does hurt. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Just running the ropes for the first time, you're gonna get rope burn. It's gonna happen.
Oh
So
my,
you
running
know
the
what I
ropes for the
mean?
first time was
Yeah,
insane.
it's no joke, and it's like
Yeah.
even when you guys let me, get in there from time to time, and I've ran the ropes, and it's like you feel it when you don't build up the resistance with your body of doing it on a regular basis. It's going to hurt. So there
Yeah.
is a difference, and you alluded to it earlier as far as you thought you were in shape, but then you realize, there's a difference of being in gym shape and being in wrestling ring shape. It is a totally different animal. And a lot
Yeah.
of people, and then for people that question, the legitimacy of pro wrestling, oh, is that thing, a lot of people gain respect, people
Mhm.
from the outside, when they come in and they see, oh, so they do land on, a bunch of plywood and steel that's under a mat that's about this thick.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? Like all these things. And it's like the hardest part of the ring is the apron that a
Uh,
lot of people don't understand. So there are so many aspects to the industry, to the business that I mean, I already had the respect for before I even got into wrestling. But the fact that I got to be around you guys all the time and see for myself, it's just like, man, like I respect it so much. It's like I will never let anybody talk bad about an industry that I'm in and that I
mm.
absolutely love. So once obviously, there's a process as far as training, and then when Dan or any other trainer say, "Hey, man, kid, I think you're ready," they have some preliminary matches before a show or big show and that type of thing. So talk about some of the matches you did. I don't know if you remember them as far as who you did wrestle, but talk about wrestling in front of a crowd for the first time because it's different when you're wrestling in front of your peers versus wrestling in front of the paying consumer.
So I had an interesting start on when I first got into the ring. I
Hmm.
remember doing a couple uh birthday parties.
Okay.
Uh, this was late 2019. I got to
Hmm.
do a couple birthday parties. Nothing crazy, just in front of a bunch of kids.
Right.
Getting my feet wet into in the ring.
Right.
And then I think it was early 2020, I ended up breaking my foot at training. Uh trying something new, I landed weird and I got a fracture in my foot. And I think about 2 months after that was the lockdown.
Right.
So we didn't have training or anything like that of the sorts for months. So I had a broken foot, couldn't train for 2 months. It was like April, the lockdown happened. I was out. We were probably out for like 8 months. We didn't come back until
Like
um
October, I think what
something
is it
like that.
you
Yeah,
guys were
in the
just
fall
sitting
time.
like yeah you guys were sitting 6 feet apart
Yeah.
in all that and you were just watching videos or whatever. I do
Yeah.
remember that
I
happening.
remember
Yeah.
tra I think it was August where we came back, but we couldn't do anything physical until later that year. And then one of my first matches back in front of a crowd was it was a Factory Friday, and I wrestled Jester. Uh,
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, man.
I miss him.
I miss him too,
But
man.
he took such good care of me in that match.
Hmm.
Made me look like $1 million. Uh, we wrestled pretty decent match. And that's something I can never thank him enough for.
Hmm.
And then from there, I was kind of on the bench, so to speak, for a while. Afterwards, um, and I wasn't really on shows that much, but I wanted to be in that ring. And this was around the time Missy Sampson joined in the Monster Factory as a coach.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the issues we were having was having referees for the show. So I volunteered to be a referee. At least I get to be part of the action. I can be part of the show. I can be of use. If there's anything I can help with, I was for it. Put me in, coach. And then I ref for almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I got to ref, matches with Royal and LSG, Steve Macklin, Ricky Reyes, guys who have been doing this for a while, and I got to learn uh just by watching and being in the ring how they moved, how
Hmm.
their timing was, how they would communicate. Um, so reffing was a big part of my learning process, and in training, behind the scenes, I'm just busting my ass to get better and better in the ring, so eventually I could take the stripes off. And I think I had a training match with someone. I can't remember who it was, so
Hmm.
if they remember, I apologize. But I remember and another person that I will forever shout out. I love her so much. Mimi, I remember her that day was telling me like I was good enough to be put on shows, and Missy agreed. So Missy did her best to make sure I never wore stripes again. And then I slowly started being put on shows, a couple squash matches, nothing too crazy, just to get
Right.
used to it. And then that's when I became, then I was put in a tag team with a buddy of mine, Jason Morgan, as the mean
Mean
guys,
guys.
mean guys, which wasn't my. We joked about that being a name, and then one day Dan was like, "Hey, so what's your team name?" And then he just blurted out the mean guys, and I'm like, for real? Is that what we're going with?" And it kind of just stuck. It was like it was a total meme, but we just rolled with it, and you know, we had a great time with it. As short-lived as it was, but that's kind of how I started my wrestling career. It was a little bumpy, but we got there. So,
I enjoyed you guys' promos, especially the promo that oh man, you guys cut some scathing promos going out to the crowd. I loved it. And it was just an old school heel tag team that did chicken shit things in the ring to
mhm,
distract the referee and a cheap shot here and a cheap shot there, and then you get the victory and get your hand raised. And that's an element that I love because heels aren't supposed to win
mhm,
straight up. They're supposed to cheat. They're doing horrible things. So
yeah,
I loved, for the short-lived time you two were together, you were able to make some magic in there. But I do want to talk about a guy that you spend a lot of time with, the one and only world-renowned, Emmy Award-winning John Alba. Yes, John, I'm putting you over on my podcast, buddy. He's awesome, man. He's really awesome. And of
yeah.
course, yourself, Nick Petit, and Brian Morris were part of the tandem world renowned.
Mhm.
Talk about the time you spent with John and his wealth of knowledge from a verbal perspective as far as cutting promos and all those things.
So the cool thing about John is that he's always been around wrestling.
Hmm.
I remember seeing like old clips of him with managing Carmelo Hayes when he was in the Indies. So John has had some experience, and uh, I'm afraid to admit that when John came in, I didn't had no idea who he was. I was just like, I don't know who this guy is. But he was very well spoken, so I was like, oh, okay, he's really good at promos.
Right.
So I looked him up, and he's like, sportscasting, news networks, and all this other stuff. And I was like,
Everywhere.
oh, and I was like, I thought the Emmy award winning was a bit, and I was like, no, that's not a bit, that's legitimate. And so being able to work with John, uh, he had like a different perspective that sometimes I wouldn't always see.
Hmm.
Because it's not always, it wasn't always just like the promo work or the character work that John
Hmm.
always, he was always helpful with. But sometimes it's like even like mannerisms inside the ring, like, hey, maybe you should slow it down here. Maybe you should ch like change the pace here, stuff like that. And he helped me a lot with my in-ring stuff, believe it or not. Um, and as far as like the group itself, like, I think we all brought something different to the table. And, I mean, wasn't World Renown's first pick, but I think it worked out well.
Hmm.
Um, the chemistry that the four of us had worked really well. I mean, we were all together for 2, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from John. Character stuff, promos, pacing. Um, even like how to stand out in a group, how to individualize yourself from everyone else while also being a cohesive unit. And I'll always thank John for that. Man, I really wish Nick didn't kick him out of the group.
Yeah, man. I got to tell you, in just backstage and just, one-on-one time that I've had with John too, and just little things. And that's all he really talked about. It's nothing like big, but just a little thing that he can kind of
Hmm.
tweak and say, hey,
Yeah.
you should do like he's told me some things about you should announce him this way, and here's why.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about that.
Hmm.
So and that's the beauty of pro wrestling is the fact that there's so many people that bring so much to the table with a wealth of knowledge that I mean, as much as, it's safe to say there's a lot of egos in the industry. We all know
Hmm.
that. But there's a lot of us that don't have an ego that can take constructive criticism, can take that advice and apply it to what we're doing. And ultimately, we're all going to get better because of it. So, by all means, like I said, John, meant a great deal to not just World Renown, but to a lot of us. So, I hope John is doing well. I know he's doing well with the with sportscasting and covering the Mets and the Yankees and all that stuff, man. The
Yeah,
Knicks. He's doing his thing, man.
I know he's still doing the Matt Hardy podcast,
Absolutely.
and I remember the last day that he was at the Monster Factory, that last show where he made that speech.
Yeah.
Um, it's a speech that stuck with me because he said a lot of kind words that night
Yeah.
about myself, Nick, and Brian, and so much so that when I recently made my own speech after winning the Monster Factory title that I alluded to John had said that
Yeah.
night, and and I hope he knows like those words meant a lot to me, and it's something I, still think about to this day. So
Yeah.
I can't thank John enough either. So
Kudos, John, man. Definitely. So obviously, you're on the independent circuit. We're not signed, to WWE,
Mhm.
Ring of Honor, AEW, MLW, Impact Wrestling, TNA, whatever you want to call it. And the independent is a grind. So,
Mhm.
you've mentioned companies you've worked for. We Are Wrestling. We Are One Wrestling. 1CW, Blood, Sweat, Tears, Coliseum Pro Wrestling, and of course, the Monster Factory, and a few other promotions, in between. So talk about the grind and hustle of the indies and trying to get your reps in and try to make some money at the same time.
Oh, dude, it's such a dog eat dog world out there. It's a lot of learning as you go.
Hmm.
Because you can ask all the questions in the world, but until you experience them yourself, you don't really understand how the wrestling business works.
Exactly.
Um, and it can be quite humbling sometimes because sometimes you gotta understand, like you mentioned, like egos and stuff like that. You
Hmm.
could be the biggest guy in your home promotion, but when you go out there to somewhere else, there's a brand new crowd that don't know who the hell you are, and you got to convince them like, hey, I deserve to be here, or hey, let me earn my keep. And that could be it could be challenging for a lot of people, and not just physically but mentally. Um, a lot of people might get disheartened by maybe not getting the reaction they're looking for, or maybe
Hmm.
you know they're thrown into a battle royal or something and they're the first guy out in like 10
Right.
seconds or whatever. But I think every experience is a learning experience. Um, like I'll take that 10 seconds in a battle royal just to get my face out there. And that 10 seconds could mean something to somebody out there. And it's also how you interact with the people that come to watch the shows. You know, a lot of it's entertainment. A lot of what we do is fan service.
Hmm.
So sometimes you just gotta interact with those people before or after the show and just get a feel of how this new crowd is like, or just just be a cool guy just to talk to, because I've met a lot of cool people who just come to these shows just to have fun or just to get something off their minds. And that's the biggest thing I learned going to these shows. I mean, I've gone to a couple shows where I'm just there to help out. The person I rode with is on the card, I'm not. But just getting to talk to some of the fans, they're excited. It's like uh not a bit not maybe the biggest production in the world, but they love wrestling, they love the show, they love all the antics.
Right.
There's a bunch of characters out there that you know people resonate with. Or some people that are just like really entertaining. Uh so that's one of the biggest things is just like learning how to navigate through different areas, different crowds, and try not to get disheartened by it. Everything's a learning experience. This stuff takes time. Very, very small, less than 1% has made it to the big time in less than a year. So, I'm having the time of my life right now. Um, I'm in no rush, and I shouldn't be. No one should really try to rush this.
Right.
You want to soak in every moment and learn as much as possible so that when you are put in a spot somewhere else where you have your time to shine, you're prepared. You're physically, you're mentally ready uh, to give is asked of you. So, um, I'll take every learning experience I can get from these places.
Incredible, man. It's awesome. The art of putting matches together. A lot of people don't understand, when it's whether it's a, one-on-one, a tag team, whatever it might be. There's an art form to this in regards to the highs and the lows. It's like a
Hmm.
song.
Hmm.
You're never your dancing partner. Talk about the art of putting these matches together and where sometimes you have to take the lead and say, hey, I think we should do this here, or we should do that there. Or you might acquiesce and say, okay, that's fine. We can do that. We can do that. Talk about the negotiation and all that. 'Cause it's a lot. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
understand.
Man, I mean, I think that's one of the things like, growing up as a fan, right? You see,
Hmm.
I was like, man, like how do they do all that, right?
Hmm.
And starting off and you get to watch the process, you try to start to figure out your own way. There's a lot of different people with a lot of different styles, a lot of different ideas, and art is just a summation of creativity. And
Right.
a lot of people have a lot of different ideas, but I think what I feel like, what works best for me is just being able to adapt to any situation. Um, if I'm in there with a high flyer, how can I base the best? Uh,
Hmm.
if I'm in there with a strong man, how can I move around you? Uh, I think whether I'm leading or someone else is leading, I think I pride myself in working with what they have to offer. I'm like, all
Right.
right, give me what ideas do you have, and how could I make the best out of working with that? Because I never want to put myself in a box of like, well, this is what I do, and that's it. If someone gives me a different scenario, it's like, ooh, never done that before. How can I work around it?
Hmm.
Um, teach myself how to adapt to different match styles, and not confine myself to something that I'm always particularly used to. Um, if you ever watch my matches, a lot of the times I'm ground and pounding, or sometimes I can fly off the ropes.
Right.
It really depends on what the situation calls for, but I do believe in versatility
Hmm.
as a tool when it comes to calling these matches. And some people I've talked to, they have the whole match set, and I'm like, great. Let's fill in the blanks and then let's call it a day. Uh, there's been a couple matches or two where it's just like, oh my, there's like I gotta remember this, and this, and this, and this, and for the most part, it's been working out so well. I will shout him out. He's probably the guy that got me to do the craziest stuff that I've never been used. Smiley,
Oh
um,
yeah.
Smiley has gotten me to do some weird stuff that I've never done before. Uh, the first time that we wrestled, he wrestled with a phone in his hand, and while he's putting me in all these holds and stuff, and he's recording the entire bit, and I was just like, I don't. You just lead me where I have to go, and I'll be there. And it was such a great bit. Which the video I still have on my phone. It's hilarious because John's also in it too. Um, but yeah, I think keeping myself versatile when comes to calling these matches has helped me out a lot. That way I'm not stuck in a box and only doing one thing.
Right. Right. What's the biggest advice anyone's ever told you in this business?
Oh, brother, that's a loaded question. Uh, biggest advice. Um, Honestly, the best advice is, just have fun. Just enjoy it. Because time will fly like this and you don't even realize it. And, you know, moments come and go, and you just gotta really cherish those things. Like I look back at the last 6 months of my wrestling career, and I've done some crazy stuff. Sometimes I just sit back and it's like, wow, I did that. I wrestled at the 2300 arena dressed as Jason Voorhees teaming up with Wildfire Tommy Rich. Like, who does that? winning
Talk about
trophies.
that for a second. Wait. Because when I first learned about this, I'm like, wait a minute. First off, I grew up watching Wildfire Tommy Rich, former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. What was that experience working with a seasoned vet like Tommy
Uh,
Rich?
so I remember Missy Sampson gave me a call one night. It was about maybe a week before the 2300. It was like their October show last year. Um, their Halloween whatever. And so she gives me a call. It's like, hey, are you free this day? And I'm like, yeah. What's up? It's like, all right. Do you happen to have a either a Michael Myers or a Jason Voorhees costume? And I'm like, I do own a Jason Voorhees costume. Why? What's going on? And it's just like, all right. So you're gonna be in a tag team with Tommy Rich versus Mike Myers and I forgot his name. I apologize, but it's gonna be a tag team match where these two guys are teaming up with Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, and so just be there that day. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. And before the show, she introduced me to Tommy Rich, and real chill guy. And I was like, man, I can't believe this is happening. I'm like in my garb. I see all this other talent back here. Probably the first time I felt like I had imposter syndrome. But yeah, we went out there and me and Mike did our thing. The crowd there is relentless. People shouted some things at me, but then again, it is the old ECW arena, so really didn't expect much less. But yeah,
Right.
man, it was something. It was quite the experience, and I look back at it, and it's like, wow, I really did that. That's a crazy thing for me to do. Uh, and it's just one of those things. It's like if you don't enjoy those little moments, it's just gonna go right past. So I try my best to like, just have fun with it and, uh, fester the moment.
Absolutely. What's something people would be very surprised to know about you?
Um, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that because for the most part, I am an open book. I don't. I'm very easygoing. Very easy to talk to. Um, as far as like wrestling is probably the most interesting thing about me, if I'm being really honest. Like
Hmm.
I dedicate myself to wrestling above anything else. So there's not really much about me that people would be surprised. The only thing that people are surprised about are my controversial food takes. I know some people aren't happy with certain food takes I have. The biggest one, I know one of the biggest ones is like I do not like Krispy Kreme donuts. I think they're overrated.
They're
It's
really,
like, oh,
first of all, they're really, there's so much sugar in it. First of
oh,
all,
dude, like they
that's
taste artificial as like
like
as
you
anything. Like
it's
I,
probably so much sugar. It's probably so much sugar in it it'll rot your teeth. Like,
yeah, it's just like, oh, you gotta
no,
get it fresh in the morning. Like, no, I've had them. No, that's still, I'm not a
no.
big fan. And then I got I definitely got bullied for saying ranch is better than blue cheese. So yeah, a lot of my food takes people aren't very happy with. And that's probably the only thing that they'd really be surprised about. Um,
Wow, incredible. So we have the Monster Factory as we're taping this on March 17th. Today is 2 years that the Monster Factory docu-series that was on Apple TV was out to for
mhm,
the world to see.
mhm.
Talk about because you were on the roster at that time when we were filming the docu-series. It was like a little close to a year. So talk about that experience and knowing that you're now seen on Apple TV and now Prime Video. Talk about that experience.
This was in the middle of the pandemic. During the lockdown, so we had to go through a lot of testing just to shoot for the day
Hmm.
and just to get through training as well. So a lot of testing had to be done before shooting, and then there was a lot of waiting around to see what we needed for that day.
Right.
Um, and then this time, I think it was around this time I think I pushed myself. Um, the most. I uh I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder around this time where I'm just like I want to get to the next level, regardless of these cameras being around.
Right.
And um but to see this process of like um you know how production is done, how bits and pieces are filmed at a time. Um, it's very interesting to see. It's my first experience of anything like that.
Right.
And then again to talk to like, they highlighted a couple people as the stars of the show and
Hmm.
get to talk to them about it, like Bobby Buffet and Notorious Mimi and getting their views on how all that worked. Um, they had their own outside shooting schedules as well as the training stuff. Um, but Dan at the time was really looking for people to step up during that time, and I wanted to be one of those guys. And I I'm not the super flashy type, so I never acted a fool on camera.
Right.
But I just wanted to know that I could be reliable and of use to help the production crew and anything they needed. If they needed stuff carried, I got you. If they needed someone to take a bump for somebody, I got them.
Hmm.
Uh, so it was a lot of work. Training would go just a bit longer, just so they can get a lot of B-roll and just enough film for that day because a lot of the scheduling was hectic. So training days would be very long. Um, and I was all for it. It did it was very tiresome, but it was just the name of the game, and the production crew that came in, Will and all them, it's really nice people.
Yeah,
Uh, I
amazing.
w I wish I could remember the name of this one sound guy. He was so funny. Uh, man, I wish I could remember all their names, but there's a lot of cool people I got to meet, and f getting to see the final product on Apple TV. Uh, I was like, man, I was there for that shoot day. It looks amazing.
Right.
Um, and fun fact, and it's so weird because the series itself uh ends on the 2300 show.
Hmm.
And it's so weird when you look at like the background shots or whatever. My my fiance Emily has more screen time on the Apple TV series than I do. And I
Oh,
think that
wow.
that is so funny to me. I think it's hilarious. Uh, so yeah. But all in all, because I think filming, I can't remember how long it took, but um, it was something. Very very physically and mentally demanding. Uh, Probably even more so for the stars that they highlighted for the show.
Yeah.
I remember Bobby telling me he's like waking up at like 4 in the morning just to go shoot something, or get ready to film a scene or something, and going like maybe 12 hours a day just to get some shots. And you know um it was interesting to see, but to see the final product was something special. So much so afterwards, we happened to see a surgence of, other docuseries um that showed up on different platforms. Um I would love for there to be a season 2 of the Monster Factory TV series. I think there's a lot of stories out there that still need to be told.
I
Uh,
agree.
when you look at the stories that were told for this show, from Goldie and from Twitch, Lucas Tasango,
The
apologies.
Twitch, first of all,
Uh,
the Twitch story literally drove me to tears because I
uh,
had no idea
hmm
at all. I mean, all of them for the most part. Everyone had stories that I had never known about, but the Twitch one, when it
hmm
came to how CM Punk ultimately saved his life, it's just like that was some heavy, heavy, heavy stuff, and it just goes to show you that kindness goes a really, really long way because you never know what someone may be battling or what they may be going through.
And I think that's the beauty of what the show offered to people is like, yeah, these are, characters on the show, but the human beings behind it, there's a story there.
100%.
Um, like listening to Goldie's story really helped me. look back at my life and just like the things that I dealt with, like anxiety and such like that. And I'm just like, oh, and Goldie's a guy I've always looked up to at the factory. So getting to see his story and like, oh, there's someone else also feeling how I feel. Uh, I think it really opens up your eyes of like, these wrestlers are, they're athletes, they're larger than life characters on screen, but there's a side to them not everyone knows, and that's why I think a season two would be perfect for the Monster Factory. There are so many stories that are untold, a lot of stories that go unseen, and there's just a lot of people out there that a lot of people at the Monster Factory, I think they should have their stories told. Yeah.
Incredible, man. I was, like I said, just the scheduling in regards to how many shows we did. We did two shows a month during 2022.
Hmm.
And there was a time, I think in July of 2022, it was a random Saturday. They wanted people to come in. They had to reshoot matches, actual matches from the early part of the year.
Yeah,
And
I do remember that.
yeah, and I came in and they had me do the opening, welcome to Monster Fact. I must have done about maybe 15 to 20 takes of that one thing, which I'm
Hmm.
an actor, so I don't mind, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that just really goes to show you how much of the grind that we have to put in to make this show, what it is. And again, Apple TV, if you're listening, season two, man, like, come on. That's
Yeah.
the way it is. So
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the having to reshoot matches and stuff.
matches, yeah.
There's a clip of a battle royal where we all just like meet in the middle and start fighting or whatever. I
Right.
remember one of the producers messaged me, was like, "Hey, do you still have these colored tights?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I still do. What do you need them for?" It's like, "We want to reshoot this one battle royal from like 6 months ago." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Uh, so I was just like, "All right, I'll go get them." And then just they had to bring in a bunch of people to make sure they all had the same gear from
Hmm.
that day and shoot some clips for that.
Right. That's the way you do in Hollywood, brother. You know what I mean? So if you see, you can shoot out of sequence, and if you're trying to revisit some scenes or whatever, you got to do the same thing. But you mentioned, over the past couple months, you've been on the rise. November, you won the Turkey Slam Rumble, which earns you a championship opportunity to cash in, kind of like a Money in the Bank thing. And on
Hmm.
February 8th, 2025, you made history by winning the Monster Factory Championship. And I had the honor and the privilege of announcing you as the new champion. Now, I've
Hmm.
announced many new champions, and it's crazy to think about now. I think it was yesterday, was the 6 year anniversary where Getty Cahoon
Hmm.
won the title.
Hmm.
And he was the first new heavyweight champion that I got to announce. And it was a lot of emotion because the fans were really behind you. The
Hmm.
fans were really behind you. I drove Steve Macklin home after the Turkey Slam deal, and nothing but high marks for you,
Hmm.
on what he felt about you. And shout out to Steve Macklin,
Hmm.
TNA, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and he was also in the Battle Royal as well.
Yeah.
So talk about that moment, when all three referees counted three, by the way,
Hmm.
and
Uh,
when you're being announced as the new champion, and take me back, to that time, because I can't even imagine what I will be feeling, after I've seen so many wrestlers on TV get to experience that, even some of your peers getting to experience it. So now it's you. Talk about that for a second.
so I'll start with Turkey Slam back in November.
Hmm.
So for that show, I wrestled Steve Macklin one on one
Hmm.
before the Rumble, and um, I knew I knew going in, uh, you know, for a while that me and Steve were gonna have this match, and I'm already like sweating bullets in the days leading up to it. I'm just like, man, Steve, I really gotta make sure my game is there. And,
Absolutely.
and he's an intense individual. Like what you see on TV is nothing. If you stepped into the ring, you feel it. And I'm like,
Little snug.
I felt a lot. No complaints.
Yeah.
It was gonna happen, and I was just like, you know what? This is one of those times where it's just like this is where you prove your grit, prove that you belong, and Steve gave me a lot of notes afterwards, but all good stuff.
Hmm.
And then Turkey Slam, I had already known ahead of time that was gonna be Final Four. Um, but I what I did not know was I was gonna win the whole thing. Um, that was I think Dan had told the story of how that went. Because I found out very, very late into it. I think Steve was on his way out of the ring when I found out. So it was almost like the final three when when I found out how this was all gonna go down.
Right.
And then I don't think I believed it until the moment happened. I if you watch back, as soon as the elimination happens, I just fell to the ground and just had my head down because I was so emotional that not only did I get to wrestle Steve Macklin, I got to win Turkish Slam, which was the first show I attended as a student here. I got to help out with and getting to this point, um, it's everything that I've worked hard for.
Right.
The match with Steve would have been enough that night. I was just like, I finally got an opportunity to show what I'm about. And this match with Steve was like, and the people were there for it. Um, we're telling the story with world renown. You can see the crack starting to happen. And then match with
Yeah.
Steve, the people are behind me. Uh, they want to see me succeed. And then I made my entrance for Turkey Slam, and I'm like, oh, these people are here for it. Um, and then it was almost undeniable. Uh, you couldn't deny their reaction toward the end. They're, who they really wanted to win. And honestly, just to be final two with Travis Jacobs would
Yeah.
have been enough. I would have had I not won that night, I would have left um patting myself on the back. I'm just like, all right, I did something right tonight.
Right.
Um I've earned my shot here.
Yeah.
Just to prove that I could be more than what I was. And then I did end up t winning Turkey Slam, and I was so emotional. I had to take a step back behind the curtain just to be by myself for a while, because everyone was just coming up to me saying none but nice things to me. But to
Right.
me, I was just like, it was just a step in the right direction. Um, as far as like I don't want to say validation, but you know, when you work so hard, you just want to be given just a sliver of an opportunity. And that night, I got more than that.
Right.
So I can never thank everyone that was involved enough for that. And but I was super emotional that day. And then we fast forward to February. I think Dan gives me the Iggy on that. Uh, maybe 2 weeks in advance, and I have to like no sell it. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, all right, whatever. How are we gonna do it? And he was like, I'll let you know. And I'm like, okay. Uh, so when he had the idea of have it happening when the show's over. And people are already like not expecting anything else to happen. The big heel won the night, whatever. People already wanted to see me leave the group. Uh, so for me to interrupt the post match VIP meeting or whatever just to have an impromptu match, you could see everyone being confused. There's like, what's happening? And then the bell rang and people were like, oh, here we go. And then winning the championship, to this day still doesn't seem real to me. Um, but I thank everyone that was involved for making that moment special. And then I knew they were going to give me a mic afterwards, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I was just like, I'm feeling so many different emotions right now. For as hard as I worked, I've made it uh to the top of the Monster Factory. And, for a lot of people, that might not mean much, but for me, this was the first thing I feel like I've worked hard for and got. So that night I will never forget, because it meant so much to me. So,
I watched that back fairly recently. I showed Jasmine the title change, and she was like, "Well, how did it happen?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was the end of the show, and it was how it was done was awesome." I said, I'm with Dan's telling the fans good night, because the Eagles are in the Super Bowl the next day. He said, "Go Birds!" And all of a sudden, because you and Nick have the same theme, they
mhm.
thought they were going to hit his theme, and no, you come out, you cash in, and I just say. Chris Desmond's cashing in his Turkey Slam Rumble championship opportunity, and the match starts right now, and the bell rings, and then next thing you know, 30 seconds later, 1, 2, 3, you're the new champ, and just the array of just the emotion from the people, because again, this had been building for months. How
Mhm.
you guys were planting seeds of this split potentially happening, and all of a sudden, you come out on top. And I mean, Nick, and by the way, let me just say and put him over too, man.
Mhm.
Nick Petit is one of the most unselfish guys that I've met in this industry, you two included. But his willingness to understand business, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, and he's getting opportunities, as you well know, and I'm
Hmm.
sure those opportunities are going to come your way soon. But I want to talk about the most recent match you had, and
Ooh.
my God, um, I had never in my 7 years of being in pro wrestling as a ring announcer have seen a bloody match, the one that I saw last week. My man, you and the Notorious Mimi are in a street fight, and it's just chaos, utter
Hmm.
chaos, and brutality.
Hmm.
And ultimately, you come out on top, still the champ. And I mean, you do a freaking Spanish fly off the top onto a table,
Hmm.
and you guys are just bleeding like nobody's business. Talk about the creative in bringing that match to life and what it ultimately became. Because that was a crazy match.
So, I remember having this conversation a few months ago with her. I was just like, man, I've been here a while, but I've never done a street fight. Um, there was the one time I got involved in that Fatal 4-Way tag team tornado, Texas Death, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I got involved in that for a bit, but I wasn't super involved in it. But I've always wanted to be in a street fight, and then I show up one random Tuesday, and she comes up to me, is like, "Hey, it's gonna be me and you in February." I'm like, "Great, awesome, love it, love working with you." And then she was like, "It's gonna be a street fight." I'm like, "Time out, what?" Uh, and then she already had the finish in mind. This was her idea, and I'm like, "Okay, great." Um, you know, I think we've always worked well together. She's one of those people I just have great chemistry with. And then just calling this match, we have a lot of ideas, a lot of stuff didn't make it into the match. Because I think we've done enough. I think the horrors that people were gonna see was gonna be fine enough as it was. Uh, but as far as like um our decision to make the match as you know brutal and as bloody as it was. It started off as a joke, and then as the days kept going by, it was just like I don't think we're joking anymore because I think we wanted to put on something special,
Hmm.
something that people are going to remember for a while. Um, and to have an experience that we both never had, and we took every safety precaution leading up to the match to make sure we were good for it. And and then alas that the match came and, super nervous about it. But I knew I was in good hands. There was a lot of trust in each other to make sure everything went well. Um, you know, and she's someone you can match crazies with. She had a lot of crazy ideas, and it was just like, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's figure this out. Uh, but yeah, it was hard hitting. It was emotional. It was physically demanding. But I couldn't have asked for a better dance partner that night. Um, and I was telling a few people about it. I was just like, once the match was over, I was so sad about it. I was just like, man, this awesome experience is over.
Roller
Um,
coaster.
yeah, I was just like, oh man, the nervousness, the excitement is
Hmm.
here.
Right.
The brutality was um something I've never experienced, but I was just like in the moment, the adrenaline is there, and uh and so much of my family was there. I did not tell them what kind of match I was having. I did not give them any warning of what was going to happen. Their reaction was real. They were in the front and second row, and there was a moment if you watch back where Mimi decided to lick the wounds, so to speak, uh, in front of my family, and it was awesome. It was such a great time. Um, yeah, man. I a part of me was like, man, I can't wait to do that again. But I'm also like, I don't know how I feel about wanting to do that again so soon. So,
Right.
but it was such a special moment. Um, and there was no one better to do that with than her. Um, so shout out to you, memes. I hate your guts, but whatever, we'll be fine.
And you guys can rewatch that whole entire match and event on Monster Factory's YouTube channel. If you can go to when Monster Factory turns it up to 11. So make sure you check that out. As we wind down, just wanted to ask you trajectory and things of that nature, career wise, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, oh boy. Um, it's hard to say. And the reason why is because I never want to give myself, um, I never want to give myself too much hope for something that might not happen. And
Hmm.
reason why I say that is because, you know, for so long, I feel I always had in the back of my man, it's like I can't wait to do this in the future. I can't wait to do that in the future. And life has a funny way of showing you, it's like, hey, not everything is gonna work out the way you think it does. Um, so I'm just here for the ride. Take it day by day, enjoy every day until the next one shows up, and I will keep wrestling till the wheels fall off. Or in any capacity be part of the wrestling world. Um, whether it's whether it's a contract or no contract in 5 years, Chris Desmond will still be part of the wrestling world. Um, because it's what I love, man. This is no better joy than being out there in front of the people, being a part of the art that is professional wrestling. So I guess to answer your question is, I don't know. I just know that I'm going to be in some capacity, uh, a part of pro wrestling's wheel and having fun doing it, man.
Incredible, man. Where can the people find you on social media? Instagram, X/Twitter, Facebook, the whole nine yards. Where can they find you?
So you can find me Instagram, Threads, and X at Desmond underscore MFPW. I'm not too much on X nowadays, for particular reasons.
We
It's
know, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
we X is X. But mostly Instagram, Desmond underscore MFPW. Um, and catch my matches on the Monster Factory YouTube page. And yeah,
Well, Chris, let me just say this, man. We when you talked about coming on the show, and I was just like, you don't even have to ask, just come on, man. And it's like I love showcasing people that are hardworking, they're dedicated to their craft, and want to take it to the next level. And seeing you do what you've done, in just under 5 years, it was awesome to see,
mm,
and nothing but high hopes, for your career, here and beyond, regardless of whether you're at the factory or if you're going to even some of the big indies, whether it's GCW or whatever it might be, you know, and if the contract does come, hey man, I'll be rooting for you from the mountaintop. So
Yeah.
just know that, I'm proud of you and I'll definitely be seeing you soon.
Man, thank you, Derek. You've always been one of my biggest supporters, and I don't think I ever thank you enough. From the few times that we do get to see each other, I'm running around backstage with
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
head cut off, trying to get stuff done. But you've always been a supportive voice, in my short wrestling career. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for having me on the podcast, man. This is my first podcast experience, so
First of
th
many. First of
yeah,
many.
first of many.
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, man, can't wait to do it again. Hope to see you soon too, man.
Absolutely. Wow, what an interview. What an interview with the Heatseeker Chris Desmond. Again, I had the opportunity to announce this man as the new champion, and he is on a roll. He is on a roll, and I wish him all the best in his future title defenses at the world famous Monster Factory. But as I mentioned, in the opening of this, I was going to go ahead and talk about this weekend's AEW Dynasty and some of my picks that I have. And I gotta say, there's only 6 matches as I'm recording this on a Wednesday night. There's only 6 matches that's listed right now, and I'm just gonna bring them up here and we can all go over it. If you guys want to leave a comment or whatever, and what you guys think about what this pay-per-view is going to bring this weekend. So, without any further ado, here we go. So, the first match I want to talk about is a singles match for the AEW TNT Championship, where the match has no time limit. No outside interference is permitted. The champion is Daniel Garcia defending against Adam Cole, baby. Now, to me, the TNT, you know what, to be honest with you, like I watch AEW faithfully. I really, really do. And I am all for them, because they've hit some pitfalls and everything, but I'm all for them being successful. But they have not put the focus in or anything on this TNT title. You know what I mean? Even when Jack Perry had it, I just didn't see the significance of the belt because it just wasn't a focal point. It wasn't. It was just an afterthought, in my opinion. My pick on this match, I feel as though that Adam Cole is going to win this title. I mean, put it on somebody, and this is no disrespect to Daniel Garcia. I like Daniel Garcia, but if you're not going to feature him, if you're not going to put the focus on him, then you might as well put the focus on a guy who has name notoriety, and I'm sure that the undisputed guys, I'm sure, will find a way to get involved in this match, and Adam Cole will become the new TNT champion. You heard it from me, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next, we have the ROH World Championship, where it's title versus mass. Chris Jericho, the Nueve, defending against Bandito. So there's a lot of Chris Jericho hate for a multitude of reasons, I think, outside of wrestling, and I think also inside of wrestling too. I didn't see why he needed the ROH belt. Now, the only reason why I felt that, okay, it would have been great to put it on him was because in the event that I thought that ROH was going to actually get a TV deal. So, of course, you put the belt on a guy that's been on television for 30 years, who knows what he's doing, but it doesn't seem that's happening right now. So, I don't think, number one, that Bandito's going to take that mask off. And I think we're gonna have a new Ring of Honor World Champion, and that is Bandito. That's my pick. I think that's gonna take place this Sunday. So we shall see. Also, we have the AEW World Trios Championship match with the champions, the Death Riders. That's Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta defending against Rated FTR. That's of course the artist formerly known as Edge, now known as Cope, Cash Wheeler, and Dax the Axe Harwood. Now, I'm sure you guys saw Dynamite about a week ago where there was some tension between, rated FTR. There's a lot of, and I think the splinter is going to happen this weekend, Adam, at Dynasty. I think the Death Riders are going to continue their reign of terror, whatever that might be. And I think this might be a split happening with rated FTR. And who knows who's going to turn on who? No idea. But what if? What if Cope is the one that turns on FTR and maybe turns heel, and him and a guy named Christian Cage team back up? Food for thought. We'll see about that. We'll see. And by the way, I think that match is going to be top quality. Six guys that know what they're doing in there. Because usually with these trios matches, it's uber chaotic. But I think with a guy like Cope, and all these guys that are in there, Claudio, again, these guys have been doing this for decades. There's no doubt in my mind this is going to be a really good match. There's the three-way match for the AEW International Championship, where the champion Kenny Omega defending against Ricochet against Speedball Mike Bailey. Now, Speedball has been around a while, and number one, I'm glad he got signed to AEW. Another good get by Tony Khan. And if this title changes hands, if it does, I think it's going to be either Speedball pinning Ricochet or Ricochet pinning Speedball. But But I think to me, the money is keeping the title on Kenny Omega because there has been a rumor that they're talking about combining the International Championship and the Continental Championship. I mean, it's funny because, of course, if you take the words off of international, then of course you got Inter, then of course you got the Continental title. So maybe we can have the AEW Intercontinental Championship. Maybe having a unification match with Kenny Omega and Okada, who is the Continental Champion currently. So that's the only reason why I'm picking Kenny Omega to retain, only because I think we can have that big money match, maybe at All in Texas. That's probably the place to do it. Having a unification title match with Omega and Okada, and once and for all, who was the better man? Because obviously they had those classic encounters over in New Japan. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But yeah, I think this is going to be the one where Kenny retains. All right, we got the AEW Women's Championship with the champion Timeless Tony Storm along with Luther defending against Megan Bayne. Now, first and foremost, let me just say this. I am a huge, huge Megan Bayne fan. For those that I put this out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, right after it was announced that she got signed. I first saw her at ECWA's Women's Super 8 back in the summer, I believe, of 2021. This is maybe a couple months before I became the ring announcer for ECWA. I was just going there really as a fan because they were actually running that event at my home promotion of the world famous Monster Factory out in Paulsboro, New Jersey. Megan Bayne won the Super 8, the Women's Super 8, and her presentation, her work, in everything you can think. She is the epitome of what a superstar looks like, hands down. However, I thought it was way too soon to me to put her in the title picture right now, the world championship picture right now. I thought it was way too early. Way too early. Because again, I don't see Tony Storm losing the title. You know what I mean? And what does this do for Megan Bayne? Losing a match of this caliber to the champion, then what else happens after that? I just felt there should have been a better build in getting her to that championship match. I mean, if they would have given it to her in maybe let's say December of this year, at the end of the year at World's End, that makes sense. That makes total sense. But to put it in the world title picture, I'm not a fan of it. I don't agree with it. But again, that's not my company. And at the end of the day, the match is going to be good, but I think Tony Storm is going to walk out still your AEW Women's World Champion. And of course, the main event of Dynasty is the AEW World Championship with Jon Moxley defending against Swerve Strickland. And obviously Swerve has been in the news for some interesting reasons. Of course, he had his recent interview on Vlad TV. It didn't go over well with a lot of people, and but nonetheless, he's in the news. And I think as some people say that any news is good news, I guess, or good publicity is all. Any publicity is good publicity, I guess. But that's neither here nor there. But he's definitely been on the rise again. Obviously winning that match last month against Ricochet to be the number one contender for the AEW championship. And part of me feels that it's time to put the belt back on Swerve. I truly do. But we don't know also what this Death Rider storyline is going to be. I have no idea where they're going with it. I don't know what's it. It's just it's hard to even explain right now on what their sole purpose is. It really is really confusing. But I'm picking Swerve to walk away with the AEW World Championship. Well, that's going to do it for this week's, edition of the D-Lew Podcast. Again, like I said before, thank you, Chris, Desmond, for coming on and telling your story. And like I said, I'll be seeing you soon. But you can subscribe. Like I said before, I'm over 1,000. I might be almost at 1,100 now, but subscribe to the D-Lew Podcast on all platforms. Okay, I'm talking about Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, YouTube. Like I said, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can look up on YouTube, just hit in the search engine, Derrick T. Lewis, or at the real DT Lew, or put in the D-Lew Podcast, and you hit subscribe and also hit the bell so you get all notifications once there's new content available. You be able to to hop on. Okay, social media, follow the podcast on all social media at the D-Lew Podcast. You can follow my own social media at the real DT Lew. Also, again, I have my store. I got my Pro Wrestling Tees store. You can go to pwt.derricklewis.com. And of course, you got the Derrick T. Lewis official merchandise store at shop.derricklewis.com. Like I said before, I have the Nike exclusive now. Okay. Nike, I have some exclusive items made by Nike. So if you go to my store, I believe there's two hoodies right now. There's the hat, and of course I got two tees waiting for you to buy and support. Support Siete music, support the D-Lew Podcast. Well, I'm gonna get out of here, and as I always say, no matter what it is you do in life, always remember to make it count. See you next time.